G'day, my name's Alan Gamble. Welcome to another episode of Aussie Box Office Chart with Spider-Man still dominating. Let's dive into this weekend's numbers. So, starting with the top 5, Spider-Man Brand New Day holds number 1 by a mile with a $17.1 million week 2. Its second week in release, dropping just 44% for a current total of $55.5 million. So, to put that in context, we'll dive into those numbers after the top 10, but as a brief, as far as I can tell, that is the best second weekend gross of all time at the Aussie box office. Dropping just 44% on a total of $30 million for your opening is kind of insane, and we'll compare that to the top openers so you can see just how good of a hold that is on that size of gross. $55.5 million. For context for that, after 2 weeks of release, Spider-Man Brand New Day is just behind where Avatar Fire and Ash and a Minecraft movie were at the end of their box office runs last year. Those were the top 2 highest grossing movies of last year, and they ended up at about $58 million and $56 million. Spider-Man Brand New Day there in 2 weeks. The Odyssey continues to hold really strong with another $5.2 million in its 4th week of release, dropping just 16% for a current total of $47.1 million. Another smash hit. Those 2 movies are now the top 2 grossing movies of 2026 at the Aussie box office. Toy Story 5 with another $400,000 in its 8th week of release, dropping 29% for a current total of $45.5 million. Moana 2026, the live-action reboot, brings in $350,000 in its 5th week of release, dropping 38% for a current total of $15.5 million. I kind of expected that to do much better. And sneaking into the top 5 is Holy Days with $330,000 for its opening weekend. That is a local comedy drama from across in New Zealand. Moving on to 6 through 10, we have a few new entries, but starting at number 6, Minions and Monsters drops down to number 6 with $220,000. Its 7th week in release, dropping 35% for a current total of $23.1 million. And The Invite drops down to number 7 with another $216,000, dropping 24%, has been holding very well in its 5th week of release for a current total of $2.8 million. And then we have some more new entries. Super Troopers 3 enters the chart at number 8 with $175,000. Ice Cream Man enters the chart at number 9 with $142,000. And Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma opens in number 10 with $135,000. So, first I want to compare Spider-Man Brand New Day's week 2 drop compared to everything else of the top 10 openers in the Australian market. So, Avengers Endgame from 2019, the only movie that opened higher than Brand New Day at $34 million, dropped 60% in its 2nd week of release. Star Wars The Force Awakens dropped 58%. Spider-Man No Way Home dropped 72%. Avengers Infinity War 52%. The Last Jedi 66%. The Lion King at number 7 only dropped 46%, but it opened at $20 million, not $30 million. The same with Barbie. It opened to around $20 million. It only dropped 20%, but that's $20 million, not $30 million. And that's why Spider-Man Brand New Day had the biggest second weekend, because while those movies dropped around the same or less in the case of Barbie, its initial gross was so much lower. So Barbie in its 2nd week brought in around $15 million. Brand New Day has just brought in 17.1. For context, $17.1 million as your opening would have you as the 11th movie on this chart. Deathly Hallows Part 2 dropped 56%. Rise of Skywalker dropped 53% in its 2nd week of release. My prediction was if it's 55 to 65%, that's about expected. Anything less is a really good hold for a movie that opened that scale. And it dropped 44%, which is the 2nd lowest drop on this chart. So let's take a quick update at Spider-Man. As a total, as a franchise, this is the Spider-Man movies and their total Australian gross, and as I predicted, Spider-Man Brand New Day has leapfrogged everything else and is now just chasing down No Way Home. And if we're being honest, it's looking like it's going to get there. So it's currently ahead of everything else, just catching 2021's No Way Home. But 55 million after 2 weeks, that's kind of insane. Taking Spider-Man Brand New Day in context of the entire MCU, it has moved way up this chart and is now just trailing Infinity War, Deadpool and Wolverine, No Way Home, and Endgame. That is what it's got to chase down, and if we're being honest, it's easily going to pass Infinity War and probably Deadpool and Wolverine by next weekend, depending on how big the drop-off is. But there's not a lot of movies coming out that are going to compete with Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man's going to have the legs. And I'd also thought I'd put in Spider-Man Brand New Day's Week 2 drop in context of the entire MCU. So you can see there, it's dead in the middle almost, at 44%. It's not as low as some of the other movies, like 29% for Deadpool and Wolverine and Shang-Chi, which held really, really well, but it opened very, very low. Deadpool and Wolverine opened pretty big, but had a much lower drop. Spider-Man No Way Home at the other end of the scale opened massive, but dropped 72%. Endgame dropped 60%. You've got movies at the far end that either opened really, really big or kind of sucked. So Black Widow, The Marvels, and Eternals, they're all down that end with massive week 2 drops. But Spider-Man being where it is, that is a fantastic hold for the second highest opening movie of all time. I mentioned earlier we have new top dogs at the Aussie Box Office with positions 1 and 2 both going to the new entries in the chart. Spider-Man Brand New Day takes the top spot with its $55.5 million after 2 weekends, and the Odyssey moves up to number 2 with its $47.1 million. That drops Michael down to number 3 with $46.5 million. Toy Story 5 goes down to number 4 with $45.5 million. The Devil Wears Prada 2 drops down to number 5 with its $43.1 million. And Super Mario Galaxy Movie goes down to number 6 with $39.5. And Project Hail Mary goes down to number 7 with its $39.3 million. Obsession stays at number 8 with its $24.6 million. Minions and Monsters stays at number 9 with $23.1 million. And Wuthering Heights stays at number 10 for now with its $20.3 million. No Star Wars and no Disney live-action remake. That was unexpected. Moving on to upcoming releases, so things that are coming out this weekend. We have 13th of August. In wide release, we have One Night Only, a new romantic comedy directed by Will Gluck and starring Monica Barbaro and Callum Turner. We also have Stop That Train, a queer drag action comedy directed by Adam Shankman and starring RuPaul and Jujubee. We also have The End of Oak Street, a new sci-fi thriller from writer-director David Robert Mitchell and starring Anne Hathaway, Ewan McGregor, and Macy Stella. In limited release, so check your smaller and indie cinemas, we have All Wishes Come True, an animated comedy from China, and Tom and Jerry Forbidden Compass, another Chinese animated family adventure, but I believe that one, the Tom and Jerry, has been dubbed into English. Moving across to streaming releases, we have Don't Say Good Luck, a new comedy drama directed by Julie Hart, starring Sonny Sandler, Melanie Linsky, and Stephanie Beatrice, and it releases on Netflix on the 14th of August. We also have Lanterns, the highly anticipated, at least for myself, DC series about the Green Lantern, starring Aaron Pierre and Kyle Chandler, and it drops on HBO Max on the 17th of August. We also have My Brilliant Career, a new TV series version of the original novel that has a classic 1979 movie as well. This new series version stars Philippa Northeast, Christopher Chung, and Anna Chancellor, and it can be found on Netflix on the 13th of August. In returning series, Reacher is back for season 4 on the 12th of August on Amazon Prime. The last season was based on one of the best comic stories in the series, so we'll have to see what they do with this one. We also have Woman in Blue. The Apple TV Spanish series returns for its second season on Apple TV Plus on the 12th of August. So, another 4 movies for this week's challenge of dual credits, so let's get into it. First up was The Drama, written, directed and edited by Christopher Borgel and starring Zendaya, Robert Pattinson, Alana Haim and Mamadou Athie, giving us the lead up to a wedding when things start to unravel. This one was a great comedy drama for 2026. Granted, I do think The Invite was better on that scale, but the drama was still legit solid, a good time with some great character moments from Pattinson, who has better comedic timing than you would think. Next up was Pressure, also from 2026, directed by Anthony Maris, who was also the writer, editor and executive producer, and starring Andrew Scott, Brendan Fraser and Kerry Condon, telling us the lead up to the D-Day invasion, but from the perspective of the meteorology team that was forecasting the weather. I really like this one. It won't be for everyone, but I've always enjoyed war movies that show me things I didn't know about beforehand or a different perspective. And the weather forecasting team of that era was great, since I also really enjoy weather monitoring, and here's a snip of me storm chasing in America several years ago. But being able to make weather predictions in a war movie still tense and exciting is pretty impressive. Next up was a rewatch of Confess Fletch from 2022, directed and written by Greg Mottola, and starring John Hamm, Lorenza Izzo, and Kyle MacLachlan. Telling a murder mystery, art heist, and kidnapping tale, this one really goes to show how subjective comedy is, because it had generally mixed reviews, but for me the comedy lands so frequently, I just love it. This was a rewatch for that very reason. John Hamm nails the subtle comedy and the deadpan facial expressions at perfect moments. I found it hilarious the first time I watched it, and now again on rewatch. Finally was Rookie from 2023, written and directed by Samantha Lee and starring Pat Tingey and Aya Fernandez, giving us a queer sports coming-of-age drama that, granted, probably tried to cram too many ideas and issues into a short runtime, but that's a common issue with small indie passion projects. It was still a good little movie that didn't run on all the tropes you might expect given its content. Really, really neat little one. This week's Cinechums movie challenge is simply 3. So 3 things on the poster, the number 3 in the title or on the poster, the third film of a franchise, the word 3 repeated, 3 protagonists, 3 actors, like just 3. So a few people have kicked it off with Monsters Ball or Bandits with 3 people on the posters, Sharknado 3, Charlie's Angels, Cold Storage, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Let's have a look at my shortlist. My shortlist consists of Escape from LA, the Boiler Room with 3 people on the thing, Dog Day Afternoon or Dazed and Confused, 300, K-pop Demon Hunters, we've got Crush with 3 characters, we've got His 3 Daughters or 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. So we'll see how we go. That is it for me this week. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe if you like Aussie Box Office Charts. I'm also working on a couple of background projects that should be coming out eventually. But tune in next week where we'll be probably monitoring Spider-Man more, because let's be honest, End of Oak Street, Stop That Train, and One Night Only are not going to be knocking Odyssey or Spider-Man off top spot. If they do, I'll be genuinely impressed, but I don't think they're going to. I'm going to try and catch 1 or 2 of those movies on the weekend anyway, so we'll see how we go with that. But apart from that, watch more movies. Bye.